Hello, how are you all doing? Welcome to another video. My name is Philip. I'm also known as PS or PS Enough. This is PS Does Book Reviews, where I'll be talking about the books that I've been reading on the past month and some graphic novels as well, not just books. Let's get right into it. First book that I've been reading has been the 8th issue of Saga. For those who don't know Saga, you should definitely check it out. I can't praise it enough. I've been talking good things about it for every single issue that I've been reading. It's really good. Number 8 is just as good. I gave it 5 stars out of 5. I love the artwork. I love the storyline. You can see some stuff here. Some shooting, some interspecies stuff. It's like a space opera of sorts with very science fiction oriented things, like very diverse characters. It bridges a lot of interesting topics. It's not for underage people. There is nudity, there is sex, there is all kind of different things. I really love it. Can't praise it enough. If you don't know it, go check it out. It's really, really good. Next that I've been reading, it's a trilogy. This is the first book of a trilogy by a Portuguese author who actually contacted me because he wanted to release an album on my net label, Enough Records. And we had released some industrial sounds in the past, specifically of the Portuguese scene. And he was involved in that. He does some industrial electronic sounds, had released also on Disco, which is a friend label of ours. We share some artists with Disco a lot. So he contacted me. He said that, oh no, I'm a writer and I want to put out this album. Are you interested? I took a listen. I was interested. I noticed that since he's an author of writing stuff and Christina, my girlfriend, loves reading new stuff, I asked him, can you send me books? We can do a review on our Portuguese booktube channel, Books and Beers. And he said sure. So we got all of these 3 books and I've been reading them and they're interesting. They are a bit dark, noir. They have a lot of different influences. I think I will talk of all 3 of them at the same time because it's hard to tell what stories were in each at the different times. So this is the first one, O Longo, Caminho, Regresso, The Long Way Home. This is the second one, O Motor do Caos e da Destruição, The Motor of Chaos and Destruction. And the last one, O Desejo e Outros Demônios, so Desire and Other Demons. So they're all short stories, and how these short stories are related is that they're all around the universe of this fictional city called St. Paul. And St. Paul is kind of a dystopic city of sorts. It's supposedly based out of São Paulo, the Brazilian city, but not quite, more like in a mystical way. And there's a river that separates the city, and you hear about different characters that interact inside St. Paul. There's a very curious institute called the McLaren Institute, which every patient that seems to be related to McLaren somehow ends up suffering some sort of mental disturbance afterwards, mental or physical. So they're very in the cutting edge of research of mental things and supernatural things. And the books are really good. There are some references to classical authors, a lot of Stephen King. There are references to The Exorcist. There are references to Bram Stoker's Dracula. A lot of different things. But I really liked how it managed to keep a close connection with the topic of being around the city. You can tell that each story was thought of as individually, but it all links back and it adds to the lore, so it is more interesting than reading standalone short stories. I don't really like books when they are a collection of short stories. They are not interconnected. I gave low ratings to stuff like Ray Bradbury's The Tattoo Covered Man, or whatever it's called, because I didn't like that the stories were apart and then forced together to just sell more books. I don't like that. I like, if it's just a short story, I like to read it independently and not be forced into a book that collects them. But these collections from António Bizarro do make sense. They bring up the lore, so they make sense to be condensed together into volumes. And each of these books has like 10, 12 stories. And yeah, all of them were pretty good, pretty interesting. So yeah, I recommend it. It's only in Portuguese so far, I think, but I don't know if there are any plans to translate it. But yeah, it was a nice discovery. Thank you, António Bizarro, for sending us the books, and I hope you liked the review, and that we gave you something. It also inspired me to do a little writing about St. Paul itself. I started writing some ideas down, but I haven't finished anything yet. So I'll probably try to finish that and send him to Antonio and see if he likes it, or I don't know if he can do anything with it. Anyways, moving on. I went on a plane trip, and nothing better to take care of the plane trip as a book. So I picked up this one, Cockroaches by Joe Nesbo. It's the second book of the Harry Hole series. I had read other Harry Hole series books before. I had recently read number 1, which was passed in Australia. It was called The Bat, I believe. I had already read number 3, which is, I believe, The Red Breast. Number 4, which I'm not sure the name. And I also read Nemesis. Well, I don't know. Anyways, I read Cockroaches now. It's from the list of 9 or 10 books that are from the Harry Hole series. This one was the lowest rated. We had like 3.5 or 387 or something like that, while the other ones all had 4 dot something. So I thought, yeah, this is not going to be as good. But I couldn't find any reason for it to not be rated at least a 4, in my opinion. The characters are well developed. The storyline is passed in Thailand, so you get some knowledge of the culture in Thailand, which is very interesting. There's plenty of plot twists. It reminded me a bit of Nemesis, where at least the final plot twist seemed a bit like overextended or going out of bounds too much. But I mean, it loses a bit of the credibility of the storyline in terms of it being a real thing that could have happened, but it's still an interesting story, and you still it's interesting to try to follow the detective work and try to puzzle out what could be happening. And then when they figure it out, you also figure it out at the same time, but then there's a plot twist, and you know, that's the point of a thriller. And I really liked it. It was a good read, very fast read, easy to read, flows very nicely. The characters are very believable. I really like the small details that Joe Nesbo does when he's writing. Like, for example, when he's describing a scene, he mentions what the person says and that the person was tapping their fingers on the table. And that really helps you create a mental image of the whole scene. And so it's not a full description of the whole scene, it's just small details that really get you hooked into imagining it and playing out and having the characters in your head playing out the scene. So it's really interesting. I really liked it. I recommend it. I've been loving all of Harry Hole's series books. I really like the writing style of Joe Nesbo. I'm going to pick up the third one, which is The Redeemer, I believe, quite soon. And yeah, so good things only about Cockroaches. I'm not sure how much I give it. I give it a 4 out of 5. It's not as good as the other ones, but it's still good. It's still pretty good. Then I picked up The Sandman number 2 by Neil Gaiman. I really love this one. It had the most particularly interesting thing is that it had a convention of serial killers. And that part alone was awesome. I love Neil Gaiman's writing style. I've mentioned this quite a few times before. He's one of my favorite authors. And Sandman has been one of his centerpieces from back in the 90s. I hadn't read it before, so I'm discovering it now, and I really see why he got so much praise for it. It's really good. I really love it. Can't recommend it enough. I like the way how he constructs the stories, not about Sandman, the character himself, but he creates stories that go around him and somehow circle back. So he's creating this whole universe of a world of the Sandman, which is very interesting. I really like this book, and I will keep reading the series, so highly recommend it. I think I give it 4 stars out of 5. Not sure why I didn't give it 5 anymore, but I must have had my reasons. Next up, I picked volume 3 up, which is also pretty decent. Dream Country. Country, yeah. So this one is a bit shorter. It doesn't feature as many stories, and the stories are more scattered. They don't follow a particular timeline, but they're also all around dreaming and the Sandman and the lore behind it. So they're still quite interesting. One of the biggest highlights of this version, and I got the fully recolored version from Vertigo, was that in the end you see a script of how Neil Gaiman wrote the script and what he sent to the artist, and I think his name was Kelly, and it gives you some insight on how the comics are made, a little bit, how the process happens, how much detail goes into each scene. Because I mean, you look at a panel and you just see, okay, this is a woman lying here, but you check the description and it says that the room must be dark, that you could see the silhouette, and that she must be skinny and stuff like that, and then that the editors complained that she was too skinny, that it looked a bit too grotesque, and so they made her a little bit fatter on the recoloring, or on the inking actually. So there are a lot of all these small details that really shine through, and that really shows you the greatness that Neil Gaiman is. His attention to detail it's absurd. So yeah, really liked number 3. I'm gonna pick up number 4 next. I have it with me here already. It's Season of Mists. So yeah, I've been reading Sandman this past week or so, and I will keep doing so because that's what I'm in the mood for. Have you guys read any of these books before? Do you have any similar recommendations, any favorites? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any recommendations of stuff that I should read in the future in the same line, I'm also open to that. So let me know what you guys think. See you next video. Bye bye. Take care.